Latham, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Chairperson Robin Belcher Meeting.
Here.
Paul Huff.
Here.
Michael Kidder.
Here.
John Sharp.
Here.
David Shields has said he's not able to attend. Nicholas Vitale. Not here. Irene Spanos,
Here.
who is Oakland County representative. Alternate Dane Slater. Mayor Dane Slater.
Here.
Alternate Councilwoman Ellen Huderick.
Here. Dave Shields is not right.
And Dave Shields is not here, and Nick Vitale is not here.
Quorum present. The next order of business is, this is the meeting at which we elect a chairperson and a secretary. So the chair will entertain those motions at this time. It has been Mark Miller as secretary and myself as chairperson for the last year.
Am I allowed to?
You are, because you're voting today.
I will move to keep it as is.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of maintaining the officers as they are?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. The regular meeting schedule was included in your packet as information. This was voted on at the last meeting, you read in the minutes. We will meet again October 27th, unless we have something that necessitates meeting ahead of then we'll give proper notice and call a special meeting. Okay? Approval of the minutes from the October 28th, 2013 meeting. You all received these last week, so Chair will entertain a motion to approve or correct.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Paul. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Old business. We didn't find any to put on the agenda. Can anyone remember anything that we didn't cover? Good. New business. First thing, we need to decide on our budget so that we can send it to council for approval before the budget document is finalized. So you all received this, and today on the table were the millage rates levied and captured that had been left out of the packet for your interest. Glenn, did you want to do a little presentation, or do you just want to take questions?
Just a quick overview of the minutes that are of the budget that's in front of you. What the budget does is basically take the tax capture that we're able to capture through the Smart Zone LDFA, and we're able to use those dollars back into the budget for the LDFA. So what this is showing is kind of where we've been at in terms of the actual for 2013, so you can see where we have been in terms of the revenue coming in based upon that capture, the amounts that have been estimated and budgeted, and then going forward through 2017 is where we're looking at it. In terms of the expenditures of those revenues, those are parceled out as indicated. In 2013, we actually, for operations for Automation Alley, which is a line item from our budget, 92,359 has gone out from last year. With an approval of this budget for this year, the estimated budget, so they'd be receiving an additional $60,000 for the 2014 year. So those revenues have been going down a little bit because the tax capture has been going down as well. So, and what you can see now also the projections going forward into the future. So some stabilization, I think, in that, which I think is encouraging given what we've been through in the past several years. Part of the dollars we're looking forward will go to infrastructure. We've done that and actually have done some road improvements out in that area, which has been very helpful, particularly after this year. And we'll be doing some more as well, so it'll be very important to be doing that. Another item that the budget does cover, they cover administrative services, and that has about the $5,000 range as budgeted. Marketing costs, that's membership dues for Automation Alley to be a foundation member. So foundation member is a higher level than what many other communities are, but we felt it's important that we support them as best we could, and that comes through the LDFA. And then there's miscellaneous audit fees and other fees as well that go into this, which brings out the budget. The lower portion of the page deals with the captured taxable value to give you kind of perspective as to where those dollars are and how they've been captured going forward through 2017.
Glenn, if I could ask, is there a typo in 2013 actual? Administrative services are 50,000 instead of 5,000?
That was lowered, actually. It was
Okay.
higher going back, and we lowered that down to $5,000. Feeling that was too high at that point. So, no.
What's covered by administrative services?
It's the budget time, it's putting the budget together, it's the staff time, it's meetings, it's that kind of thing. But we feel $5,000 more representative number for that.
And if I may, also in previous years, there were legal issues to be considered, so that would include my time. There were administrative issues, management had more involvement. So in past years, there has been more administrative staff time devoted to the LDFA.
The other thing is, when we were first appointed, we didn't know how much time this board would take from staff because we had not had this kind of an entity before. And so there was a much larger piece put in the budget. And then we got wise and tracked our time and realized 5,000 pretty well covers it.
Glenn, the same question on the infrastructure for budget for 2015 was more than double. I was just curious, is there something that's planned for that year?
That is going to be, that's based on the tax capture that we're anticipating coming in, is my understanding. And then another thing that's going to look at too is that in 2015, we're also looking to do an analysis, kind of space analysis, space needs in that area, for Automation Alley in particular, just to see what the future beholds, and that kind of gets into the next agenda item.
The other thing that this also includes, Mike, is there are road projects scheduled along Big Beaver, and some of them are in front of the Smart Zone, and we will pay for part of those road projects out of this funding, and that's why it's pretty consistent with that big bulge.
Okay.
It's roads. It's roads.
Do the bylaws dictate or have a provision for the fund balance, the capture, or the ending fund balance? Is there a comfortable amount that you're looking for as far as that balance? It's 12,000 generally. I know in some entities there's a dictation of a certain dollar amount that you want to keep, isn't it?
There is none for this board.
Okay.
So,
And in a budget like this, oftentimes, or it seems like you can control the expenses a little bit more than most entities, so you don't expect surprises to pop up. So, okay, I guess that was a question.
yeah,
And
it's
I
not,
see that-
it's not, 150 lines, so you're right.
Okay, great.
We have a pretty good handle on it, so.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? What's your pleasure?
So move, approve the budget as presented.
As presented? Thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt we approve the budget for 14-15 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It gives us a reflection on what the 2 years after that will be, but that does not have to be approved for that one.
Looks good, thank you, Glenn.
All right, Glenn, you
Yeah.
gave us all of this.
Mm-hmm.
You can run this discussion. If you have a recommendation, please give it.
Okay. We put the next item on the agenda to kind of look forward a little bit. Future LDFA smart zone consideration. We're at the point where we're talking with Automation Alley. Automation Alley has been a major benefit to the city. It's been a major impetus for getting the LDFA going and to help support them. We've been able to support them over the years, which has been fabulous. They do great things for the state. They are the largest technology association in the state, so they've grown tremendously and they continue to grow. So we thought, staff, kind of said, okay, we need to take a look at what the future's gonna hold, for it. Are we able to sustain this over time? What are Automation Alley's needs, and what should we look at in the future? So we know that currently, the LDFA, as it goes out, so 15 years that we've had it, and it goes through 2017. So it will end December 31, 2017, based on the current approved plan that we have. So we're not going to look beyond that. What are our options? What do we need to look at? So in your packet, there's some information that was provided by the state, and it has set up kind of some options in terms of what those next step options are. There is a 5-year potential extension from the current ending date, which in this case 2017, December 31. And there's also a 15-year extension as well. There are different bars that are set based on both of these. The 5-year extension is fairly straightforward. There's some reporting requirements. You have to approve the plan, and you extend out beyond 5 years of the current program. A 15-year extension of the LDFA would require significant changes. It requires partnering with another community and who would be setting, it currently does not have an LDFA. Many communities have it. There are only certain numbers, there are limits around the state. An example of a community that is doing a joint LDFA that's creating a 15-year extension is the Hancock area up in northern Michigan, the UP, Houghton, Hancock, in that area, in combination with Marquette, the city of Marquette, and the university up there in northern Michigan. So they're working on that. There's a proposal, we could look at other communities. You have to get both communities to approve it. You'd have to have our community approving a new plan. You have to find a project. So it's way more difficult, but the benefit at the end, obviously, you have another 15 years. So we've been tossing that back and forth, but we felt that we had to make sure that we really knew what the needs were before we went ahead and said, okay, it's going to be 15 years or it's going to be 5 years that we're going to be proposing. So one thing that we have included in the budget is to take a look at kind of analysis, space analysis for Automation Alley, work in conjunction with Automation Alley as to what their future needs might be. Take a look at that and come up with some discussion decisions as to what is needed in order to sustain that going into the future. So we have not yet hired anybody, we're still in the negotiation, we're still in the talking stage, but we are talking regularly with Automation Alley to find out what their needs are in the future and how we, as an LDFA, can help support that going forward. We want to make sure that Automation Alley has the tools to help them grow. That's what we want. So we're looking at all the options that are available. So I wanted to make sure it was on this agenda from a discussion standpoint. There are requirements from the state that say that you need to do an executive, give us an intention of what you want to do. Give us a 2-page executive summary by June 30th, if you're looking at a 5-year thing. Our LDFA does not end until the end of 2017. We're a few years ahead of that. There are changes that could be made between that point. I know Lori has some thoughts on that as well. But we would certainly, I think the state is acceptable in terms of saying, we're looking at this, we're going to review it, we're going to consider doing it, and then we can move forward from there. The way they've talked with us has been, it's been fairly loose. I mean, they just want to know a direction that the community wants to go in. And I'm not sure, Irene, if you heard anything differently, but that's my understanding, is that it's a direction to
Right,
go in.
at
It's
this
not
point,
it's not a firm commitment to go one way or another.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right now, it's still very open, and they just want to know what the intent is of the smart zones upon their termination.
Right.
So I know we're working with OU and in identifying what their need could be too as they move forward with Rochester Hills. But I mean, Automation Alley, clearly, I mean, I'd like to see their International Business Center expand a little bit more because we have a lot of companies in there that we've recruited there, and most of them in there are Oakland County prospects. So we're hoping they'll graduate into the city of Troy. Most of our European companies, they want to locate close to Automation Alley because that's their starting point, their landing zone. So in terms of benefits, it's absolutely an asset for the community, for the entire county.
Well, that works there too. If we, so we are allowed to provide an executive summary either for another 5 years or another 15 years, or because of the way the deadline's filed, we could file for both, you know, if things changed in that 3 months. There, as far as we know, there is no other opportunity coming up, even a year from our actual ending date, where another opportunity to extend will be offered. There's nothing else in statute to allow that to happen, is that right?
Well, and that's the thing that and I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, that's why I looked at you and said.
Yeah, and I cannot, I understand that there are limited funds available, and I understand that that's why they want, you know, kind of a path as to where we wanna go from here on out. The statute does say that you can get, I mean, in 2012, they amended it and said that you can get an additional 5 years upon approval of the state treasurer and the president of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. That's the only deadline is, you know, that's really the only thing in the statute. The information that they've given to us says, yes, you have to have this plan by 6/30 of 2014, and you have to show how you're meeting, you know, the regional collaboration, and also you're using your TIF. And then also, there's a second requirement. We have to have our plan done by 2015. Well, I have some issues with that because you have a whole public hearing process. In order to expand it, you have to go through the same process that you used to create it. And I think if we are telegraphing this now as of 2015, when our TIF doesn't expire until December 31st of 2017, I just find that problematic. Now, I don't know if it's because of the limited funds and it's just a one-time thing, and if you don't do this, then you're automatically disqualified from getting the approval of the state treasurer and the president of MEDC. I don't know that. It's not written in here that you have to do that you have to comply with that. This is, again, I looked even on the website, and I've looked everywhere. The only place that has these deadlines and this requirement is this document right here. And I know that they are going around, they're going to Ann Arbor, for example, they're going to the different LDFAs, and they're giving everybody the same document here, might have different deadlines, but I really do have a problem in, you know, the validity of the whole process.
Well, and the smart zones all expire at pretty much the same time because they were all established at the same time. So I'm concerned that this may, quite honestly, yes, it says smart zones, but really?
Yeah.
Because they're all being asked then to get out their crystal ball with really no time for study. Because you're exactly right, that process is, we know how long it took us to set this up in the first place. Very lengthy, and in our case, because it's a joint, there may be another step added to that.
Right, because Southfield had
Yeah.
the CTP. I mean, it's Southfield's CTP that we globbed in on, and that's how we have our
So that may add another step in our case. Thoughts? I'll keep my mouth shut. Dan?
Have we looked at what some of the other communities are doing? That maybe we can see what they're doing to give us some guidance? Has anybody been before us that the deadline maybe is getting closer to than us that have done anything, do you know?
Not that I'm aware of. Rosalind Zador, who attended our meeting back in October from the MEDC, she kind of gave an overview at that time, actually on the same general subject matter. She didn't indicate, you know, if any other communities were having any problems or any specific issues. She only mentioned the one in the UP as an example of how communities are coming together to work on this. Yeah, you start wondering though, in terms of you know, joining together with another community, you also want it to make sense. You know, not just do it for the sake of partnering with another community. There needs to be some kind of, whether it's here in the region or whatever it might be. I mean, there was some reason to have Southfield a part of this in the beginning as part of the joint LDFA. They had a major project where together in the region here, we're trying to move Southeast Michigan forward. You know, if there's no reason, I'm not sure it makes sense to do. So we have to really come up with a compelling reason to do this.
To extend it.
Right. Well, to partner with
Oh,
another
to-
community
well, but-
in order to extend it.
Yeah. So,
The
yeah.
15
That's a
years.
requirement.
Yeah,
Right.
that is a
15 years.
requirement for, well, the regional collaboration, isn't that a requirement for both of them, but not to the degree?
Although the 5-year extension, regional collaboration, really, Automation Alley by definition is regional
Checks that box
collaboration.
for us.
And they have huge
Yeah.
support from the head of the MEDC who's got to approve
Sure.
this, and the treasurer as well. So, 5 years is a little,
Pretty easy for us to check that box.
should be.
I know, I guess that's what I was gonna say, having Automation Alley in our smart zone would seem to be a good reason to continue, because we give $60-some thousand to Automation Alley out of the budget. I wasn't here when Ken spoke at the last meeting, but some of the issues in the past coming from Ken was, he's getting tugged to leave Troy.
Mhm.
And, it's always been, I think, Troy's intent to make sure that doesn't happen. But isn't that a reason for us to continue the LDFA, is to keep Automation Alley in Troy? So it seems like an easy decision to me that we should continue, especially if we want Automation Alley's headquarters to be in Troy.
Is, and Ken has left or is leaving, isn't there a new Automation Alley?
No, Ken is still the
No, Ken
president.
is there. He gave
Okay.
up his deputy
County
county
executive.
exec
Got it.
As of
position.
October of
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah. That's
No,
the
he's
piece he
still
gave up.
executive director.
And at this point, Automation Alley is not looking to relocate.
No, they really are
No.
not.
Desire.
They put a
They
lot
do
into
need
their
more
facility.
space.
But I would assume if we gave up our smart zone or LDFA, that the headquarters would probably leave.
The cachet is gone.
The cachet is gone, so why would they stay? So it kind of seemed like a no-brainer to me to continue.
That's always been my thought, is, having them here. The ROI in that for the city of Troy and our business community is so great it's almost unfathomable. I mean, that's how I look at it.
It just seems easy to me to make the decision to continue it for 5 years, so why don't we just move in that direction?
But
But if there's some legal issues, I can understand why we don't
Lori?
want to do that.
I think that
I'm
we
just thinking.
can comply with just a very general statement. They don't have any,
they don't have criteria.
right, they don't have a whole lot here. So I think that we could say, that the board met and the LDFA met. And I think the question here, though, is, do you think the 5 years is good enough? Or do you think that it needs to be the 15-year? And if you think it's the 15-year, then we need to partner with somebody else. And I think Saginaw was the one person that didn't have, so does that
That was an
make sense?
example. There were a couple others as well, but
Right,
I'm trying
but
to
there are
think of the
few
connection.
communities that don't have an existing LDFA, so we'd need to find something. So I think that's the question is, and I think that's what you were hoping to get guidance on is, yeah, I think you're right. The 5 years probably is a no-brainer, and we can comply with this without sacrificing what my concerns are, and I think that it can just be a very, very general statement. But I guess the question for you, and I think what you're looking for input on is, do you want to do that extra 10 years at the cost of associating with another entity?
Well, it's interesting, I participated with all the smart zones and all the universities about a marketing initiative, then he called it the Great Lakes Interchange. And so it was really interesting in how the smart zones work together, the different communities work together. But I know that Automation Alley, they've set up a PLM center at OU now. We're part of that as well as some other vendors. And when you talk about Saginaw, things like that can help in there where you set up these PLM centers. And Automation Alley's really been driving that. And I think that's really great for the region. I think it spurs the type of businesses as well as students to stay in this area as well as businesses. So I think there is an opportunity where you can actually make a connection where that is like one of those special projects.
That might be, I mean, and, yeah, we could apply for both, they're 3 months apart.
Right.
And it might be worth sitting down with Ken and saying, does this work for you, for us? Because in essence, Automation Alley works for us, and we'll help them however we can. I think there's kind of unanimity on that opinion. So if extending our zone to be able to help them bring more jobs to Southeast Michigan.
But you had said Saginaw does not have,
I think that was mentioned, Rosalind mentioned that as one example. There's others as well.
I wonder if there are others in, in the region, because I agree with you. Just to find a community to set it up doesn't make much sense. There has to be some commonality there, some opportunities for growth there. But if we could get a list of what those other communities are, maybe we can take a look at it and strategically see which ones make sense.
Particularly in Oakland County,
Yeah.
may make some sense.
Or someplace
Yeah,
close.
there's a lot going on. I don't know, does Ferndale have one? Because there's I think there's a good synergy there. Southfield, Troy, and Ferndale as tech hubs that we're seeing with the Oak Tech Connect initiative that we recently launched. We're seeing large concentration of IT, tech, digital media companies in those 3 communities that I think might make sense. But I don't know if they have one.
Right.
Sorry.
Do you need guidance today or opinions as far as?
I was looking for this kind of discussion.
Okay.
To try and hear what the feeling was around the table. We are talking with Automation Alley right now, so there's dialogue going on. It's not like we're throwing this on them. So we are getting to understand better what the needs are, and we'll learn even more, once we do space analysis and that kind of thing. But in the meantime, this feedback is very helpful.
And as far as from an opinion point of view it would be directed to a large degree by Ken and Automation Alley, and we've pointed that out already. If he had come up with a point of view, well, we've been talking to Ferndale, we've been talking to some other city. At that point, you almost have to have a strategic alliance and then try to fit in whether that would make sense as a partner under the guidelines. But without that, my opinion is a 5 years the quickest, easiest,
Right.
cleanest, and certainly worth supporting.
John?
The 5-year extension seems like we really ought to do that just to service Automation Alley. But I think we ought to talk to them and see if we can go down the road of the 15. And if they're looking for that kind of long-term partnership. But I don't know if you need us to do anything on that today.
No, not other than the discussion and the feedback. And I'm sure there really is much more you could do on that today.
Do you? Go on.
So I know one of the issues is space, and so when we look at the current smart zone, the way it's set up today, I mean, is there even the possibility for them to expand at their current site or even locate to a new area within the current Troy smart zone?
There are expansion opportunities on their current site.
Okay.
You'd have to reconfigure some of the parking, which in order to make more parking, because they need more parking. And it can be done. That's part of what we want to learn from more detailed analysis, but from a very cursory analysis, yes, you could expand outside depending on how much square footage they need.
Oh, that's
Well,
good.
It's piggybacking a little bit on the 15 versus the 5 because that's a consideration when you look out 15 years. And if Automation Alley continues to have that success, I mean, that space requirement is going to be a continued
Right.
need.
And if
Knowing Ken, it probably will be.
And if you find that there is no real need, you also don't want to saddle them
Right.
with the burdens of keeping up any future space. So you want to make sure this ties in with their overall goals going forward.
Smart zone money is a little different than DDA money too, though, so that helps us in this situation. But have we got consensus to apply to extend it 5 years. Do you need a motion to that extent?
I think perhaps a motion giving city administration some authority to pursue,
A 5-year extension?
yeah, and/or
Well,
15-year,
that, my next question was going to be, because I always think that it's cleaner for staff if there's a real motion on the table and it's passed. So then the next piece would be to investigate the need and the ability for collaboration toward a 15-year extension. Now, the question for you all is, do you want to bring this back to us rather than giving them carte blanche for a 15-year, or do you want to trust their professional judgment and say, if you think the case can be made, apply for both?
We do have the ability to call a special meeting.
Well, I
at
know
any
that.
time, so
That's
just
why I'm
wanna
asking.
Make that clear.
How do you
Wait,
feel about
you
it?
mean the city staff? Oh, I feel very confident. I feel very confident that.
Yeah. You know, they're playing with your board's lives, so I just wanted to make sure that if that's what you want to put into that motion, you have the comfort level to do it, or most people do, and if not, we'll break it down into 2.
I think we should make 2.
You think we should make 2? That's the attorney in you talking. I think that's fine. So the chair would entertain a motion to authorize staff to pursue whatever is necessary for a 5-year extension of the smart zone.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on that?
Is there any con on that? Is there some downside to why we
Yeah, there's a
shouldn't do
signal
that?
we're sending.
Well, there is a signal, but it's not binding, and that's the thing. I mean, really, what they're asking us for, and that's the, again, the legal part of it, they can't require us to submit this approved plan by 6/30 of 2014. I mean, that's the first deadline. They say by June 30th, we want you to do an executive summary, which, again, I'm hoping that Glenn will let me help out with that, and we're gonna put lots of weasel words in there, because we don't know. This is the intent, this is where we think we're going to go, but certainly it would not be binding on this board. Would just be transmitting the intent.
But I'm saying, is there a downside
To extending the life.
extending the life of it? Because, I mean, theoretically, if this is TIFA funding, so what we're doing by extending the life of it is we're allocating dollars from the taxes to this purpose as opposed to into the general fund.
That's correct.
Yeah, for that extra 5 years, we're asking for the city to continue to get what they're getting now, and then we would continue to get whatever the capture was.
Right.
You're right. So instead of that money going back into the city, they only get what they get.
But in return for that, we get Automation Alley's cooperation hopefully for at least the next 5 years, beyond 2017. And that theoretically is a great benefit to the city.
Well, and the other thing is, we continue to provide money for city infrastructure and those sorts of things. So it's not like the tax dollars that would be used for the roads are not being used for the roads. We're putting that in out of our capture.
I think you weigh the pluses and minuses in those two statements very well, and I think given that, I concur there's no downside in at least the 5 years.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to craft the 15-year motion?
Do you want to vote?
Well, you want to
We
vote on
did,
the
we
5
did.
year?
Didn't we?
Not
I
yet.
thought we did.
Yeah,
Oh, all right. I
we
just
did.
said, is there a discussion? I did. All right. The motion to authorize staff to pursue a 5-year extension of the smart zone. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Now, to the 15-year, we have a big issue because we have to find a partner. And I suppose what we're doing is authorizing staff to pursue an investigation of whether a 15-year extension is first of all, a good idea, and second, if we can find a suitable partner. I guess we have to do both.
Viable and prudent.
Yeah.
I think you have to include automation alley, I think, in your discussions,
Right.
if you're giving directions to staff.
I mean, they would have to contact Automation Alley.
But if you're looking for a
But
resolution.
You might
to-
want
you
to
might wanna-
encourage them to consult with Automation Alley as
Absolutely.
they are pursuing that prudence and viability.
Glenn, do you have that motion down? It includes
Think so.
Automation Alley,
Yep.
Yeah.
includes
Cooperation with
discussion.
Automation Alley
Yeah.
on any decision, yeah.
All right. Before that gets seconded, do you want this to come back or just go forward?
I'm not sure I'm ready to vote for
It going forward?
it going forward. I think we need, and I recognize that it may mean a special meeting, but I don't think we have enough right now to authorize.
So then you want also in the motion that it come back to this board before the application is written?
Yes.
Would a variation on that, I don't wanna, I mean, I'm ready to vote on that, but would a variation on that be to have city staff then, given those two, be able to go forward with it without a second meeting or a special meeting? And again, I could vote on what you proposed, the way it is.
I'm just not sure there's enough information on board for us to authorize them to go forward at this time. I mean, if somebody else is comfortable doing that, make your own motion.
I will second the motion as it stands, and I will do it for this reason, that I think that after having the discussion of we see the upside, it may come to pass that not everyone will see the upside for 15 years. And I think another transparent discussion about that, should we feel the benefit of going forward, would be well suited. So I think, for transparency, if nothing else, it needs to come back to this board to just talk about and go. It may be, a 10-minute meeting, but as a single item, just say, yeah, we're terrifically happy that you found that, go forward, or, oh my goodness, that's not what we expected at all. So I think that, yeah, we'll figure out how to get quorum when you need it.
Good.
So, the 15-year resolution that John made and I seconded is to authorize staff to pursue a viable and prudent partner for a 15-year extension of our smart zone in cooperation with Automation Alley, and then bring it back with a recommendation to us before the September deadline.
I think what's
Right.
June 30th.
No,
No,
15 is
15
September.
is
Oh,
September.
okay, sorry.
no,
Do we have some old discussion
Sure.
on that?
talk.
Legally, Lori, this board really will not be authorizing a 15-year extension.
No, we're authorizing them to pursue. Yeah.
Understood, but what are you looking to have be brought back to this board to vote on? Because this board will not be voting on whether to expand that to 15 years or not.
No, whether to
Find a partner.
Yeah,
Submit the
no,
application.
I think to answer what Dane is asking, I think we have to authorize the application to the state, isn't that correct?
That would
So
be what,
legally, you're asking us to authorize the application for the 15-year after you talk to Automation.
that would be
That's a
what-
different
special
motion.
meeting. That would
That's
be-
not this
I just
motion,
wanna
that's a
make sure
different, yeah.
what you're bringing back us to is authorizing the application, because we're not authorizing a 15-year.
No. No,
I just wanna make that point that
yeah,
we're just, you're coming back to authorize an application.
right.
Okay. So that
We
makes
have to
sense
get-
to me,
Okay,
to bring it back here to authorize an application.
yeah, and that was John's concern, was he
Then
didn't
we'll-
feel like he had enough to
But there has to be a
authorize it.
public hearing,
Absolutely.
you know, there is a lot of things that have to
Yes.
be done, but
Yes.
as far as this board goes, you're just authorizing an application.
Right,
You're
Yeah.
just really getting in the queue for the
Yeah,
funds.
right.
That's what the
Yeah.
application is, just to get in the queue for
That's
the
the clarity,
funds.
that's the clarity I was trying to look for.
Yeah.
We're not bringing it back
No.
here to
No.
authorize.
No. well,
Just.
we don't get to authorize from this
Right.
end. The state's gonna do that.
Mhm.
But I think that was the point, was that some of us were uncomfortable getting in the queue without knowing that we really
Who our
could do
partner
this in a way that made sense.
Yeah.
So, that is that option. All those in, everybody copacetic now with, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
My thought would be that if it's viable, we ought to pursue a partner in Oakland County, if we can do it, as opposed to like Saginaw. But, I mean, if that's the only way we can do it, I suppose we should do that too. Yeah,
If it makes sense.
Makes sense.
yeah.
There is no other new business unless someone's thought of something. Board member comment. Anybody have anything to forward for the good of the order? Well, I thank you all for your confidence in me. Public comment, Mr. Ashland?
No comment,
Thank you.
but I approve.
All right. Well, then this meeting will stand adjourned until we meet again.